to Wook Plus. I am Weekend Wook, joined by JW from Stud Me Down. Thanks for joining me, man. Appreciate you stepping in tonight for our very first Goose After Show.
Oh,
First of many.
this is the first Goose After Show you've done.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm honored to be here then.
Right. The inaugural, the debut.
Well,
That was a fun show.
I got to be the inaugural guest on the Sunday show too. So that's
Right. We're making a habit out of
thank
this.
you. I'm
That's gonna
grateful
become
for the
trivia one day. All right, before we get into it, what'd you think overall? Big picture, tonight's show, new drummer. A lot of people are nervous. Kind of sprung this up like an island tour kind of situation. Hit it real quick on a weird Sunday to open at the Cap. What'd you think?
Yeah.
How'd they do?
I loved it. I thought it was
Yeah.
great. Cotter, man, that guy can wail.
He's a fucking machine, dude. He is unreal.
I don't understand, and like he didn't look like he was working that hard back there, but he was like in a super groove, and I think we were talking about this offline, like before with Ben, like he was there, and I could hear the drums, but my ear wasn't pulled to them.
Right.
And maybe it's just because of the situation. He's a new drummer, and there's a little bit of excitement about that. But my ear was really pulled to what he was doing throughout the entire show. Like there was it didn't blend in to the rhythm section at all. I mean,
he was very distinct. And actually, I think Jeff sounded better too. We were talking about that, about the way Cotter plays, I think works really well and actually gives Jeff a place to play too. I don't know. I definitely like Ben, and this isn't going to be a shit on Ben thing. It just happens that they happen to find a fantastic drummer, and it's different. And I could totally imagine some like hardcore Goose fans that are going to be going through a period of like weird, I don't want to say remorse, but like an odd feeling of like, things are different.
Well,
but
you don't want to like the new guy quite yet. You got
exactly. The stepdad is like, he's like taking you out to the baseball game and like fucking hitting home runs and shit with you in Little League. And you're like, all right, buddy, slow down. Like that drum solo is fucking really tight. Yeah. No, I'm a big Cotter fan, though. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. I'm a big fan of his. And I thought he played excellent tonight. I thought he played excellent at the Chateau ones and the audition thing they released. And then he kept it up tonight. He hasn't missed yet.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
The other thing I will say is, and I kind of caught this pretty early, was I think that they seem to be, at least as far as tonight is concerned, a now 2-drummer band, whereas before it was Ben playing drums and Jeff playing congas and
the gong
and an occasional tambourine. And Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead. I'm a huge 2-drummer band guy. Let me hear that in my soul. And so I thought that was cool. I think that definitely
that's a risky move, though. I hear what you're saying, like, and then especially like with Almonds and the Dead, like, and like I know that could be a positive. In my mind, that can sometimes backfire because it really like takes the musicianship out of the drums and makes it just like a very rhythmic, like machine thing, which sometimes that works. What I really appreciated tonight was the choices. Sometimes Jeff hit the backbeat and doubled up on the drums when it was appropriate and really locked in and gave it extra power and oomph. But he still did his little, conga trills and, and it was a lot of musicianship across the board with all their playing. But yeah, I think he stepped up too. Jeff, I don't know. There's some evolution going on there.
I mean, I think that this is what you would want out of a band at Goose's stage in their career, right?
What I would, yeah. I mean, I can't speak for others, but I'm 100% what I would want out of it.
And I don't know what the inside scoop is, obviously, with like all the shit with Ben or whatever, like how all that went down. But like, I think if they want to take their sound to the next level, then maybe they thought that this was the change that they needed. And I mean, one night in, and obviously it's a pretty small sample size, but I was pretty impressed overall. And I listened to the TED tapes, I listened to the Chateau sessions and all that stuff, and I wasn't necessarily, I didn't really know what to expect hearing, the Goose tunes aside from what they did at the Chateau sessions, but like hearing some of those things live, I was very pleased. I think they're in a pretty good spot. And I remember you guys on one of your previous shows were talking about how, that these shows could, really launch them going into like a summer shed show tour. And it might have even before they had announced some
It
of
was
that
before
stuff.
they announced all those
Yeah.
sheds, and they actually have some great tours lined up in the end of the summer, but great shows lined up. But yeah, and you know what? I'm not gonna jump the gun and crown anything yet. I
Right.
will say
Small
that
sample size, right.
right, but I would say for night one, they hit the mark, right?
Yeah.
Let's jump into this set though, because I do want to go down a little bit through. I mean, we don't need to spend a ton of time on each of these, but I thought the now what do you guys call it? A flopener? Is that what I was catching? God damn, man. I love the Mo, and I don't know why I've never heard this before. If it's because it can't just be Cotter, it's the only difference, but they had such a Mo, and I mean this as a compliment, like a Mo vibe to the sound. Unfortunately, the stream mix was a little bit fucked in the beginning.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was a
rough
little
and it was a little
choppy, yeah.
distracting. But even still, I was like really digging that whole vibe, Mo vibe that was giving out of Flodown, and I liked it. I thought it was an awesome way to start the show.
Yeah, I looked up some stats on Flodown, and that's a 22nd, if I counted right, time that it's opened a show out of 131 times they've played it. So pretty frequent in that spot. And I think, and I'm not a musician, but it seemed like that's a great tune to, showcase a new drummer right off the bat, right? I
Yeah, I mean,
mean,
it's like a train beat, like that
yeah,
classic, like Poor Hardy, bluegrassy type thing, and it's a show off piece, but also very simple and locked
yeah.
in, and a good way to like get everybody warmed up, right? Without, although I gotta say, I don't know what I was expecting. I mean, now he's like legit a professional drummer. I guess we're gonna be talking about Cotter a lot tonight, whatever. I was expecting there to be some level of nerves, right? Like maybe not like anything like huge flubs or like dropping sticks or anything, but I was expecting there to be some tenseness to the music, and I didn't sense that at all through the entire
No.
night. He was so comfortable. Like, he looked like he had been playing this music for a decade now, and
Sure.
he knew it like the back of his hand.
And
But
now I don't know, like, his history, like, what did he, I mean, was that, like, the biggest crowd he's played in front of,
yeah,
ever, probably, right?
yeah, he played in a band up in Vermont, and they would play like little small bars and pizza shops, like
Oh, shit.
50 people. I mean, I think he's probably had a handful of gigs, but this is definitely the most attention and publicity he's ever come close to getting.
Yeah.
And he's handling it so far like a pro.
I
I
mean, he seems
requested
to
an
be.
interview with them, and they were like, the response I got was so amazing. They were like, we're going to let the music speak for him for now. And I was like, fair enough. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe next time. Um, I loved Rockdale too. That big bass and chunky, give it to you type of jam is right up my alley. I think it works really well.
I feel like they slowed the tempo down on that a little bit as well.
Yeah. I like that. That the extra stank face, the chunkiness. I was like, all
Yeah.
right, yeah.
And I will qualify all of my comments this evening. I am, still a relative Goose novice. I think I've seen him 6 or 8 times. And it's funny, uh, when I first saw them, I was like, I'm not sure I'm gonna like, go on Goose Tour and learn their whole catalog. And,
You're like
here I sit.
80% sold.
I am. I'm like, I mean, I'm 100% sold. I'm just still working through the catalog and some of the nuances and stuff. But
I'm not even gonna worry about it because I was thinking about that. Like honestly, it was too overwhelming. The idea of like coming into a band and like
yeah,
it's gonna happen naturally, but like there's this like part of you that's like, oh, I need to know every song and like really like the same way we know Fish, but you forget like that's been over 40 years of like building that up. Like there's no way I'm going to do that overnight.
Well, and same thing with like, learning the intricacies of how a band jams, that's hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of listening and seeing and all that stuff. And
hey, well, we're now a couple hours further on our journey, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
We'll see how it goes.
We got to talk about that drive though, man.
Holy shit.
That was a fucking ridiculous jam. Peter playing guitar. I love two guitar Goose. When they start like, ripping, and he's like wandering around the stage a little bit and jamming with Rick. But that drive was, I mean, they had a little bit of everything in there, a little Bliss, a little peak energy.
Before that, they had that nice funk early on, and then the ambient, is that what you say? The ambient section in the middle was so tasty. I want to give a Cotter. Oh shit, I'm doing it again. A shout out there too, because there's this like line I find with drummers and jam bands and bands in generals where you do too much and it sounds like you're overplaying, or you don't do enough in those ambient sections. And what he was really mastering a couple of times tonight, and the first time I noticed it was in Drive, was he was doing a lot. He had a very intricate groove underneath these like long drawn out ambient tones, but it did not sound like he was overplaying. It did not distract you or like be like, whoa, what is this animal like asshole doing? Right? Like it just laid underneath. It had a groove that everything else built over.
Yeah.
And that's a very, very hard thing to do. As somebody who can't do that, it tries very hard. Every time I do it, it's like I'm doing way too much. I got to pull it back, but then you pull it back too much. He really mastered that.
Yeah.
I think there were a couple times in this drive that I was like, I had no idea that we were still in Drive. I was like, this shit's still going. Did you get a time on that?
Yeah, about 31 minutes.
It's a good way to
longest jam of the night. I mean, there were a few 20 plus. I mean, including that, obviously, but that was by far the longest of the night. And I mean, I feel like that's everything it kind of encapsulates everything that Goose, how they jam, from my very early experience. And like they can start, on the slow end, they can peak it, they can transition easily into different sounds like a Bliss or like a little bit of a funk, blend those things together, and then just the unique sound of Peter going from guitar to keys. He was a little tough to hear at the beginning of the show, but then I think that kind of tuned him up a little bit. And you could hear him pretty well, but like that feature, like that is something for me, like I don't know, like the nerd in me is like, how the fuck do you play two instruments like and I know like the chords and stuff are the same, but like I don't know, like being talented at both of those like that is, and the energy that he brings to it. I think the drive was like kind of encapsulated, and it didn't seem like they were kicking any rust off there. Like that jam felt very natural and even. And I definitely would like to listen to that one again.
What I'm curious to find out or see what happens over the next few nights. Like, so tonight, themes from this drive jam and like the general feel, a couple of the feels, I felt like they surfaced again in other jams. And normally I love that, right? Like, that's something that I think it's something, but there were points in the second set where I was kind of like, okay, I know this jam, we just did this. I know this jam, we just did this. And I'm wondering if that was by design and like kind of like through like a thread running through the night, or if it's going to become, a 4-trick pony with the new arrangement and the new layout. And I'm not trying to be hypercritical for tonight in this isolated silo. I think it worked really, really well, and I enjoyed the shit out of it. I am thinking that there's that could get old if you always have that same kind of tight groove over the ambient, and then the same pentatonic noodling over like the build up. I think those things work. I don't know. I'm interested to see how what other kind of jams and vibes we can get out of it, you know?
Well, I think one of the things I really noticed was I think I really noticed Cotter's contribution during the Seekers part 1, and when Rick goes to, like, sing the high part,
Yeah.
like, in with Ben, I feel like that drum segment kind of dialed back a little bit, and Rick hit the high part, and then but Cotter was for a second, I thought he was actually, like, going too fast for what
Right.
the rest of the band was playing, and then I was like, "Wait, actually, no, I think that's
He was just
how
driving it.
he's
He was in front of
playing."
the beat, which is what we should have been.
Yeah, and it was almost, like you said before, kind of like the train, you know, train rhythm, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and it really kinda changed that segment of the tune from, kind of a more introspective type of tune to this, like, you know, I'm, like, driving the train, like, sticking my head out the like, so I thought that that was a pretty cool, addition, but that definitely caught my ear in the first set there.
Yeah. I like the 2 debuts we got to end this set. The, Lazy Poet, the Hot Love and Lazy Poet,
Mhm.
fucking very cool groove, ripping guitar. This is, like, the perfect Goose song, right? It's like, it features all of their strengths so well. Uh, and I don't know
First time
what
they'd
the
played that or
right,
used.
exactly. For a debut, nonetheless, I thought it was great. Really dug it.
Yeah, and then the Salt
Same thing with Salt, right?
afterwards, which Jeff was on guitar for that one. Um, it sounds like and, just from doing a little bit of, research at the set break, it sounds like Vasudo played that Hot Love, and the Lazy Poet, which I guess Vasudo was the previous iteration of Goose before it was Goose.
Right.
Um, but then this Salt, this was a first time played, so, um, I think that that's cool too to drop some new tunes. I wonder if that's something that,
Yeah, came to play
Cotter
eventually.
had did Cotter have, like, a hand in that? Like, how long has that been working, you know?
Well, how many songs in the catalog does he have down now? Do you think he has the full catalog down? Right? Like, they had to have started somewhere, like,
Well, I
giving
mean, he's
them,
got
like,
he's
30
got
songs maybe? I don't know, 20?
he's got 3 months under his belt now.
Right, but still, like, the f he had these songs down, and I
Yeah.
was almost wondering if that was part of the reason that they were doing, like, a 30-minute drive, where they were like, "Hey, we gotta do 4 nights with no."
Right.
I don't know if they're
Stretch it out a little bit.
doing no repeats, but with a new drummer, they're like, "Let's have only 5, 6 songs in this set."
Well, and again, I don't know because I'm not a musician, but, there's probably some similarities in the way that most of the tunes are played that, maybe he can kind of adjust on the fly, but I would believe that they were kinda working with a set list tonight. They weren't, um,
Yeah.
on the fly, as it were.
I mean, with how talented he is, I have no doubt, but there's also and it's just the starts and stops and transitions that you have to learn. Once he
Right.
has the groove, he can hear, you know, the progression and where the fills are and everything else, the climaxing. I mean, he's that good of a musician. And that's not that difficult, but
Well, and I'm
but
sure he's in and sure there's some, intuition and, um, I mean, the Chateau sessions and the TED tapes are, like, basically them just jamming and getting a feel for each other in the space,
yeah.
so, um, and that's just what we've seen, so who knows what, they've been doing behind the scenes, and maybe he's like a John Fishman and he, eats, sleeps, and breathes practicing the drums, you know what I mean?
Well, he just got a new kit, which I fucking love, and, like, I don't know if it's, like, creepy to, like, pay that close attention, like, stalk it out, but, like, I just such it's fascinating. So in the audition tape, right, the recording, he had, like,
Mhm.
a different kit, an older one, and then for the Chateau session, I noticed that he had the DW Design series, and he has the 3 rack toms, the 2 floor toms, and it's a really nice really nice kit, and he had all new cymbals. And I was like, he must have got that signing bonus and was like, hey, I'm going out and get my tour kit. And I didn't know. So at first I thought like the Chateau session, maybe that was like the studio's kit. I didn't know if it was like whatever. So he had it tonight. And I was like, yeah, he's enjoying this. Right? He got his dream kit and he's out there having a great time.
Yeah.
Let me do some housekeeping real quick.
Yeah.
If you're new to the channel, subscribe, or if you've been here a bunch of times and haven't done so yet, now would be a great time to subscribe. We really appreciate it, and it helps the channel out. Like this video, that's also something great you can do, and spread the word. We will be back the rest of the cap run. JW won't be, but I will be with other co-hosts 15 minutes after Encore every night. It's the shit we sign up for. Yeah, and also if you're a fish fan, we are wrapping up the fish bracket over on X or Twitter, so follow us there at wookplus. We just started the Sweet 16. It's a bloodbath, so definitely go check that shit out.
For sure, it absolutely is.
Brutal. Yeah, I think that's good enough. I'm sure there's a bunch of other shit to plug, but people know where to find it.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you take us off with this set? I know you were pretty excited about that.
Yeah. I mean, opening with Eminence front, I'm not alone in saying that this is my favorite Who song, by far. And I love a lot, I love The Who. Like The Who was my, one of the first like bands that I devoured when I was much younger. But it was cool because, they came back from set break and Peter was playing it on the piano. And I was like, is that? And then, and I didn't know that this was something that they had played, like we've talked on Stub Me Down a lot about the covers that they do. And they do a lot of covers. I think, that's fair to say they play a lot of covers. Most of them, they do very, very well. But I didn't know that this was one in the.
Well, I mean, it's been out of rotation. It's 178 show gap.
Yeah,
so
last time was.
I think that's fair to not
21,
have not known that or remember,
But
I think this is another one they nailed, right?
Oh yeah, I thought it was really cool, and it sounded really good, and like what a great way to start off the set. I mean, and then to do the 22-minute Pancakes after that, like that was a really cool segment of the show. Like that just got me. I mean, this whole second set was really good, but that first 27 minutes, I was like, all right,
I'm glad
I kind of was like, I wish I was at the cap, Yeah, there's always a moment at the shows where you're like, fuck, I should have just gone.
Yeah, no, I have that pretty much every show.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they have Pancakes in the sense that it starts off with like kind of a dad rocky, almost not cringe, but like I'm not a huge fan of segments of the opening song, but then it turns into such a monster jam. And like Fish is like the masters of that, giving you a song that you normally wouldn't like, but then they jam the fuck out of it, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I like Set Your Soul Free is now like a song I like.
Yeah, there's a million of them.
But I thought this Pancakes jam was really, really good. There were parts of it that I was tempted to be like, oh, he's just noodling, right? Like it felt very amateur, but it wasn't. It was disguised as like amateur noodling, but there was this very long, slow build, like patient development that went on that Rick was intricately, I guess you could say noodling, but like weaving this like counter melody over this groove that built and built and built and built, and then you didn't know what was happening, and it's still fucking building, and Cotter's just back there like a machine, and it's building and building, and then fucking delivers, and you're like, by the end of it, I was sold. That right at the beginning, I was like, oh, I'm not liking this, and by the end, I was like, this is fucking incredible.
You know what? It's funny because the first time I heard Pancakes, I was like, what the fuck is this? And then I heard a few versions and I'm like, all right, what the fuck is this? This one was very patient. I think
Very patient.
I mean, the way it started out like real blissful, like after the Eminence front, I thought that they were going to come in and just like start off, get into this and then rage it. But they really started. I feel like the first, you know, 12 minutes of it were almost like in a blissful space before they, started to bring it up to peak levels. And um, that was the way you describe it is that patient, like, that's musicianship to me, right? Like, they're not rushing
Yeah,
anything, like, the whole band really felt like they were listening to each other, and, that with the new drummer, like, the way they jam in some of those spaces, that made me think like, "All right, I think that this might work out."
I
You
agree.
know?
It felt like a studio session almost, like this jam, right? Like they were, or like not even a studio session, just like a fucking practice or a hangout. Like we're just gonna fucking jam on this, and we're gonna sit in it for what would you say it was 21 minutes? It
Yeah,
was
with 20
21 minutes with
22, yeah.
22 minutes without like 15 movements, or you know what I mean? Like you get 20 plus minute jams, but they hit like 6 different movements. This was just, I felt like 20 minutes of patient growing and evolving this theme through,
Yeah.
which is cool. I liked
There
it.
weren't like it wasn't like they were turning corners, at different parts of the song where, you listen to like a Fish jam and you can be like, "Oh, at like the 7-minute mark, Trey does this and the entire jam shifts." Like that didn't feel like that here. Like it was almost like you couldn't put your finger on where they started to shift it because it was it flowed so well.
Yeah.
Um, this was definitely this was definitely the second set highlight. I mean, aside from the Eminence front, which I think was, the uniqueness factor there, the Pancakes is that and the Drive, I think, really are the standouts from this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the drive is the, far and away the jam of the night, but the pancakes was no slouch. And actually, I liked some of these other ones too. Like even with this creatures, it was I'm gonna use the word, and I don't know if it's the word I want to use for it, but there was like almost like a delicateness to like this funky groove they had where like it was tight and it was locked in, but it wasn't heavy or plotting, right? Like it felt like there was, I don't know how to describe it. That delicate's the only word I can use that like could describe that group, but it was real another one that I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I'm
Yeah,
digging this.
it was real smooth. It was
Yeah.
really smooth, and Creatures, I feel like, is another tune where there's kind of, these big shifts in the direction of the jam and the song, and, this also kind of felt like they, like, smoothed them out a little bit, like, it's instead of taking, like, a hard left, it was like, gradual S-turn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
and then the Everything Must Go, I mean, that was another 20 plus, that was 20, 21 minutes, 20, 21 minutes depending
And
on.
another build-up song.
Yeah, and, that one and This Old Sea kind of both of those tunes kinda start out, like, on the mellow side, almost like a ballad, and then, if you listen to the first part and then skip to, like, the last 3 minutes, you'd be like, "There's no way this is the same song," you know?
I think the first time I ever heard it, I remember thinking it was two different songs. It was such a stark, difference. I think the transitions and the build-up was phenomenal though tonight, and it was really locked in. I think This Old Sea's more beautiful to me. Like Everything Must Go. I was like, oh, that's kind of pretty, but like the beginning of This Old Sea, I was like, this is fucking really just a beautiful song.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was speaking to me more than the beginning of Everything Must Go, but I like the build up and the end of Everything Must Go a lot too. I think that was another highlight. I mean, there were definitely a lot of peaks uh tonight.
One of the things I wrote down during Everything Must Go, and I was, like, glued to the TV watching how fast Rick's hands were. Like, he was
Man, it's
ripping.
crazy.
He was ripping, and, I mean, effortless. Um, and I saw a couple comments on Twitter that there were some like minor flubs here and there, which I guess I didn't.
Really?
I might have caught like one or two, but um, I am again not a musician and like would never judge anybody for like missing a note or like hitting the wrong string or whatever. But watching that guy play is like I don't want to make comparisons, but like it kind of reminds me of watching Trey when he's like locked in and his hands are moving so quickly, along the fretboard. Like it's just like, holy shit, like how are you doing that?
Yeah.
So I definitely caught that during the Everything Must Go. I mean, and obviously you can hear it in a lot of stuff, but the visual for me was like locked in watching that.
Yeah. I thought the segue into Factory Fiction was really cool. And I think that was a cool way, a very strong way to end the set.
I thought that the segs tonight there were only I tried to keep track here. There was only one in the first. Well, if you count Seekers 1 and 2, and then at the end, the Lazy Poet into Salt, and then the Eminence front into Pancakes, and then the Creatures into Everything Must Go was pretty smooth. I didn't realize that when they had ended This Old Sea, that they they had started. So I thought they were like starting to pick the jam back up from This Old Sea, and then like it popped up that they had started a new tune. But I mean, a 13-minute rager. And interestingly, here's a stat that I thought was crazy. This debuted in 2016, but this was only the 17th time they've played Factory Fiction. So that seems like a little bit of a rarity.
Yeah, I wonder why that is. Somebody might know. I don't. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. The last time played before was Red Rocks. They played it 3 times last year.
All right, so it's time to get into a little heavier rotation, slightly heavier.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. But I mean, it was shelved. It was shelved for a couple years.
It's a special song.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then for Cotter's first encore, a very cool Yeti. I think I was surprised how late they went, how long of a show it was. But I know I was a little bit like, I don't know. It's hard, right? But this was the perfect choice for a long night. And I'm sure everybody that's there, right? Like we're couch touring, but I'm sure if you're there, you were amped up and just like fucking go. But like it was after midnight here, and I'm like, come on, what are you gonna do? And I was like, that's a good choice, right? Like it got me interested and into it, and I was having a good time, and it wasn't super long, and I think it did exactly what the first song, Cotter's first encore, needed to do.
I mean, you're talking the first set was an hour and a half, basically, hour and 28 minutes or something like that. And the second set was like an hour and 35 minutes, 34 minutes, something like that. And then, a 11-minute encore. I mean, that's a lot of music.
It's a lot of music.
But, I think, it's the shiny new toy. They want to get out and they want to, play, and I think it sets up well for the rest of this little run. But they're going to be playing The Man. They're going to be playing.
They're playing PNC in Jersey. Yeah,
I mean they're playing some. They're playing some pretty big
small
shows
backstage, but yeah.
I mean, I think if they're going to try and fill those places, that I think they wanted to get out and play some tune-ups, and the cap is a safe space.
I think it's getting the band tuned up, but I think it's really trying to get comfort in the fans, getting more eyes on it, and do a launch pad, because I think this is a masterful execution of how to do something that might cripple other bands. And we've talked about this on the live streams before, but like switching a drummer in between tours at this point of your trajectory is a very tricky thing, and I could not tell you a better way to do it than how they did it. Like they released the news on a Friday on the off season when like nobody, like it went out of cycle very quick.
Yep.
They released the video with Cotter and got fans excited about him almost instantly. They did a pop-up tour with less than a month to get tickets, so it's high demand in a small venue that's close to home. They fucking came out and gave you a 31-minute drive right in your first night and fucking delivered. And so now ticket sales are, I feel like, going to be a lot more comfortable and locked in. Not that they were going to have a really hard time selling it. Like, there's a fervor to the Goose fan base, right? But you have to admit, there were questions, right? Among fans and even like pseudo fans. And I feel like the way they've handled this lead up into this and what they're doing tonight and hopefully the next 3 nights, it's honestly, it's masterful. Yeah. And I think whoever's making that decision deserves a raise, because I think that the best days of Goose are still ahead of them. And it's kind of crazy, right? Because they've already had such highs and they're switching this late in the game. But I don't know. It's exciting to me. I think it's going to be cool to see where it all goes.
Well, and one of the things I was thinking about is like the stigmatism of changing like a core member of the band, and how that's going to be received. And
I was ready to fucking destroy them. I was like, I like Ben, and I was like, it seemed dirty at first, right? Yeah. I'm not proud to admit that, but I was like, you fuckers, what are you doing? But then, like, they did it so well, like, they made me eat my words.
I kind of had, my reaction was kind of like, you know what? I mean, I like their music, but I'm not, I guess, invested to the point where like, this person or that person is gonna, upset me,
Yeah.
But I also know, like, you're a drummer, so like,
I think it's like a weird, right? There's like a weird empathy thing there.
I think
just like, I can see it in his eyes.
And the stories about, and I don't know, but like the shit that you heard, like if some of that stuff is true, it's like, oh man, there's a whole, a room in your heart to feel like, maybe that, maybe this doesn't feel right. Maybe something wasn't right there.
Well, I mean, but he's with DJ Williams now, and he's gonna be.
I think he'd be fine. I mean, he's gonna play. He's gonna be fine. And and that's not even like whatever. I don't think I've really thought about what I thought he was down in Mexico. It sounded like he was having a good time.
I mean, I'm not gonna feel bad for the fucking rock star. Like, let's all put this in perspective. Like, I felt bad, but like, I don't feel that bad.
But I think the level of investment for like fans like me, I think will go up now with this change. And now I've seen them a few times. I've seen, tonight, and I'm sure that it will continue. I can't see them, really taking a step back. I think that they'll grow and develop, and then they've got this summer tour, which, they're going to get a lot of time to jam. And, that I think bodes well for them. And, I'm excited to see the rest of these few nights. And the tour is not convenient for my summer plans this year, but
well, you'll catch them when you can.
Yeah, I'll catch them when I can catch them. I'm still obsessed. I'm still obsessed with that other animal band.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Well, I appreciate you joining me tonight for our very first Goose recap, and all of you watching. If you're watching this after the fact, let us know in the comments what you thought about Goose at the Cap night 1. I think the band is excited, and that's why we're all excited, and can't wait to see what they do tomorrow night. We'll see you 15 minutes after Encore tomorrow. We'll talk about it then. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate you.
Yep. Later, everybody.